My manager fired me so his girlfriend could take the job I depended on to survive. And that was the beginning of the hardest 2 years of my life, but also the reason they'd one day stare at me speechless. His name was Mark Lawson. He was a senior manager at a mid-level logistics company. I was his admin. I was 24 years old. The meeting was on a Tuesday. I remember because I had just ordered a new box of high-quality printer paper. The expensive kind Mark liked. "Sarah," he said, not making eye contact. He was reading from a script. I could see the paper shaking in his hand. "We've decided to reevaluate the needs of this department. And unfortunately, that means we're going to be eliminating your position." My stomach dropped. It just fell right out of me. The air in the room suddenly felt too thick. I could hear the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead, a sound I'd never noticed before. My palms went clammy. It was that feeling you get right before a car crash when you see the headlights but can't move. Eliminating. My voice sounded small. Came out like a squeak. "Mark, what are you talking about? My performance review was last month. You said I was exceeding expectations. You gave me a $200 gift card." He shuffled the script. The sound of the paper was deafening. "Yes, well, things have changed. It's a performance issue." A performance issue? The words felt like sandpaper in my mouth. What performance issue? I've never been written up. I've never even been late. I stay late. I order your lunch every day. You know I do. It's just not a good fit anymore, Sarah. He finally looked at me, but his eyes were cold. Dead. Like a shark's. "We need someone different. HR will be in touch about your severance." I couldn't feel my legs. Not a good fit? I've been a good fit for 2 years. What changed? What did I do? He just kept staring at a spot on the wall over my left shoulder. It was infuriating. "Look at me." I wanted to scream. "If you're going to ruin my life, at least have the courage to look at my face while you do it." But I just sat there, frozen. My own voice wouldn't work. "You can pack up your desk," he said finally. "Security will escort you out." Security. As if I was a criminal. As if, after 2 years of perfect attendance and meticulously organized spreadsheets, I was suddenly going to steal a box of staples. The humiliation was a physical thing. It was a hot red wave that washed up my neck and settled behind my eyes. I felt like everyone in the entire office, all the people I'd said good morning to, was staring at me. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a problem. A thing to be removed. I walked back to my cubicle in a daze. My whole body was buzzing like I'd stuck my finger in an outlet. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't even unplug my keyboard. My mouse slipped from my grip. And that's when I saw her. A woman I didn't recognize was standing by the department entrance. He was talking to Mark. He was smiling. A real smile. The kind he never used at work. The kind that reached his eyes. The woman was laughing, a high, tinkling sound that cut right through the office hum. As she tossed her hair back, I saw the keychain on the purse she was holding. It was a gaudy rhinestone heart. I knew that keychain. I'd seen it on Instagram. On Mark's private profile. The one he'd accidentally left public for a week. The pictures from his trip to Cabo last week. With his girlfriend. Her name was Chloe. Mark brought her over. He had the nerve to bring her to my desk. "Sarah, this is Chloe. She's going to be, well, she's our new department coordinator." He didn't even have the decency to wait until I was gone. He was replacing me. With her. He didn't even change the job title. I looked at Chloe. She looked at me. She wasn't even sorry. She just looked triumphant. He was sizing up my desk. My chair. I didn't say anything. What could I say? I just grabbed my jacket and my purse. I left the expensive printer paper. I left the little plant I'd been nursing for a year. I left the mug my sister gave me. I left it all. The security guard, a nice guy named Frank, looked miserable. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered as we were in the elevator. The doors closed, sealing me off. "It's garbage. Complete garbage." "It's fine, Frank," I said. My voice was flat. Lifeless. I went straight to HR. I was furious. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by something hot and sharp and righteous. This wasn't just unfair. It had to be illegal. Brenda, the head of HR, listened with a plastic, patient smile. It was the smile of someone who wasn't listening, but just waiting for you to stop talking. It was the HR smile. It's meant to look compassionate, but all it really says is, I am a corporate firewall and you cannot pass. I felt my anger turning into something else. Desperation. I was talking but she wasn't hearing me. I felt like a child. I told her everything. The firing. The performance issues. The performance review that contradicted it. The girlfriend. The new department coordinator, who was literally moving into my chair before my body was even cold. When I finished, she steepled her fingers. Her nails were perfect. French manicure. Sarah, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. I understand you're upset. But do you have any proof? Proof. My voice was rising. I couldn't stop it. Proof? He's hiring his girlfriend. Isn't that against some kind of rule? A conflict of interest. Do you have an email from Mark? She asked, her tone flat, where he explicitly states, I am firing you, Sarah, so I can hire my girlfriend Chloe? No. Of course not. He's not an idiot. Do you have a recording? A written statement? Anything. I have my performance review, I said, my voice shaking with rage. The one from last month. The exceeding expectations one. The one with the gift card. Brenda sighed. A long put-upon sound. That just proves you were a good employee. It doesn't prove Mark fired you for personal reasons. It's your word against a senior manager's. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. And that was it. I was a 24-year-old admin. He was a 45-year-old senior manager. It was my $19 an hour against his six-figure salary. The scales weren't just tipped. They were in a different building. I was nothing. A replaceable part. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. It was designed to protect him, not me. I finally understood. I was completely, totally, and utterly alone. I sat on the bus on the way home. The vinyl seat was cracked and cold. The city blurred past the window, but I wasn't seeing it. I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. Checking account. $37.14. I stared at those two numbers. 7. $37.14. Felt unreal. Like a typo. How could my entire life, my stability, my survival, add up to $37.14? My student loan payment had just hit. My rent was due in 3 days. I did the math again and again. Rent, $1,200. Student loan, $450. Utilities, $110. I wasn't just broke. I was negative. I was hundreds of dollars in a hole that was about to become thousands of dollars deep. I wasn't just fired. I was ruined. The bus lurched to a stop and I had to grab the pole just to stay upright. That's how I felt. Like my whole life had slammed the brakes and I was about to go flying through the windshield. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat on my floor in my tiny $1,200 a month studio apartment, staring at the wall. The red, overdue notices on my counter seemed to be mocking me. They were so bright. So aggressive. I felt like they were screaming at me. I applied for a dozen admin jobs online. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. We're looking for someone with more experience. The position has been filled. Thank you for your interest, but I was trapped. I was 24 and my life was over. A few days later I saw it. A former coworker, one of the ones who had stayed silent, one of the ones who had averted her eyes when Frank walked me out, posted a photo on Instagram. A team lunch. There was Mark at the head of the table raising a glass. And right next to him at my old spot was Chloe. She was wearing a new blazer. Laughing. The caption, so excited to welcome at Chloe B to the team. She's such a natural fit. #workfamily. I stared at that picture. The laughter. The casual way Chloe's hand was on Mark's arm. The way my old team was smiling at her. Like I had never existed. Like I was just a ghost and she had been there all along. It wasn't just that I was replaced. It was the ease of it. The joy. They were celebrating my destruction. That's what it felt like. A party on the grave of my career. The rage was so sudden, so total, it was like a physical explosion in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I just saw red. I threw my phone against the wall. I actually did. The screen shattered. I sat there breathing hard. The sheer naked audacity of it. They didn't just replace me. They celebrated it. They erased me. And in that moment something in me snapped. I wasn't going to let them win. I wasn't going to crawl back to another $19 an hour job, just waiting for another Mark Lawson to decide my fate. I was done. But what could I do? I had no money, no power, no connections. Here's the thing. I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand. I had a dream. A secret one. The kind you're almost embarrassed to admit because it sounds like something a kid would say. My whole life I'd loved to cook. Not just like it. I loved it. My grandmother Nona had taught me. She was from the old country and her kitchen was a magical place. It smelled like garlic and basil and simmering tomatoes. She left me her recipes. An old leather-bound book, stained with olive oil and wine. The pages were soft as old cotton. For years I'd been saving. $1 here, $5 there. My dream was to open a small restaurant. A little place. The Red Perch, I'd call it after a name Nona had for me. But I was scared. It was a stupid childish dream. You don't just open a restaurant. You need money. You need a business plan. You need courage. You need to be the kind of person who takes risks. I wasn't that person. I was the person who triple-checked spreadsheets. That $19 an hour job wasn't just a job. It was my safety. My practical choice. It was the wall I'd built around myself. And Mark had just ripped it away. I picked up my broken phone. The screen was a spider web of glass, but it still lit up. I had one more call to make. The one I dreaded more than anything. My older brother Alex. Alex was the smart one. The one who had actually done something with his life. He was a software engineer. He'd done well. He'd always believed in my stupid dream. Sarah, he'd say every time I cooked for him. This is criminal. You're wasting this food on me. You should be charging people for this. Quit that soul-sucking job already. I'd always laughed it off. It pays the bills, Alex. It's practical. My hands were shaking. I had to call him. Swallowing my pride. God, it felt like swallowing glass. It was admitting I'd failed. Admitting my practical choice had blown up in my face. Admitting he was right. He picked up on the second ring. Hey Perch. What's up? And I just broke. I started crying. The ugly, gasping kind of crying that hurts your chest. I told him everything. The firing. Mark. Chloe. The HR meeting. The Instagram post. The $37.14. He was silent. Just listened. He didn't say, I told you so. He just let me talk. He let me be ugly and angry and pathetic. When I was done there was a long pause. He said. His voice was calm. Too calm. So what's the plan? What do you mean, what's the plan? I have no plan, Alex. I'm broke. Good, he said. Broke is good. Broke means you have nothing to lose. So, are you going to do it or not? Do what? The restaurant, Sarah. Are you finally going to do it? Or are you going to go find another cubicle? I was quiet. Alex. I can't. I have no money. I asked what the plan was, he said. Not what your bank account looks like. Tell me the plan. The one you told me about last Christmas. Tell it to me again. So I told him. I told him about the food truck. I had researched it. Obsessively. A used one. A tiny 18-foot truck. A limited menu. 3 items. Nona's recipes. Her spicy chicken sandwich. Her 7-herb fries. A vegan black bean burger I'd perfected. I talked for 10 minutes. I had it all planned out. The permits. The suppliers. The health codes. When I finished I was out of breath. Okay, he said again. How much? Alex, I can't ask you to. How much? Sarah. I whispered it. $30,000. I'd need $30,000 for the truck and the first round of permits. Another pause. Longer this time. I heard him typing. Alex. I'm wiring it, he said. I dropped the phone. I'll wire it, he said, his voice coming tinny from the floor. But there are 2 rules. One, this is a loan. I want it back. With interest. Because this is a business, Sarah, not a charity. Got it. Yes, I choked out. Okay. 2. Don't you dare fail. The next morning my bank account, the one that had $37, suddenly had $30,037.14. I've never been so terrified in my life. That was the beginning of the hard part. The real hard part. Those next 2.5 years. They almost killed me. The $30,000 went fast. $15,000 for a used bright red food truck that smelled like old grease and despair. I named it Perch 1. $5,000 for permits. City Hall. Health Department. Fire Department. I spent weeks in beige, windowless rooms getting forms stamped. It was like dealing with HR but with the power to shut you down before you even started. $3,000 for the initial food supply. $2,000 for the wrap. A simple, beautiful logo. A stylized red bird. Phoenix. The red perch. The rest? Difference. Guess. 1,000 other things. I was up at 4 a.m. every single day. Prepping. Marinating chicken. Hand-cutting potatoes. Mixing my signature perch sauce. My hands were raw. My back ached. I had a permanent smell of fried food in my hair. My first day I parked it. On purpose. Right across the street from my old office building. I opened the window at 11 a.m. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I was going to be sick. And waited. For an hour, nothing. Just people walking by. Staring. Then a few of my old coworkers came out. They saw the truck. They saw me. One of them, Jessica, the one who always covered for me when Mark was being an ass, walked right up. "Hey Sarah," she said, smiling. "Heard you were starting this. What's good?" "Everything's good, Jess," I said, my voice shaking. "Try the chicken." She did. Her eyes went wide. "Holy," she said. She went back to the office. 10 minutes later, a line formed. 20 people. All from my old building. I sold out in 45 minutes. That night I counted the cash box. $800. After costs, I had made $500. I went home. I fell asleep on the floor. I didn't even make it to my bed. I did that every day. For a year. It wasn't all good. I had setbacks. Oh God, did I have setbacks. The generator died. In the middle of a lunch rush. $1,000 to fix it. Supplier gave me bad chicken. I had to throw out an entire day's prep. And the first winter was brutal. Nobody wants to stand in a snowstorm for a chicken sandwich. I was losing money. Fast. I was back to staring at a bank account that was hovering near zero. I almost gave up. I sat in the cold, dark truck at 8 p.m., after selling only 3 sandwiches. I called Alex, crying. "I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm not cut out for this." "So quit," he said. His voice was cold. "Go back to being an admin. I'm sure Mark and Chloe will give you a reference." That lit a fire in me. I got so angry. "Don't you ever say that to me," I hissed, and I hung up. I started an Instagram account. Not for pretty food pictures. For the truth. I posted a picture of my arm. I had a long, ugly burn mark from the deep fryer. The caption, "My old boss fired me to hire his girlfriend." I had $37. I took a loan, bought this truck, and I've been working 14-hour days for 6 months. This winter is killing me. I'm tired. I'm broke again. And I have this burn. But I'm not quitting. This sandwich is my revenge. It went viral. Locally. A food blogger, a big one in our city, saw it. The admin who fought back with chicken. The next day there was a line. 100 people. Snaked around the block. They weren't just there for the food. They were there for the story. That's when I learned. I wasn't selling chicken sandwiches. I was selling resilience. Year 2. I had 2 trucks. Perch 1 and Perch 2. I hired my first employees. People like me. People who had been fired or overlooked or just needed a second chance. I paid Alex back. All of it. With interest. He sent the check back. Torn in half. With a note. Invest it. And for God's sake, move out of that crappy apartment. I didn't. Not yet. I saved. Every single penny. At the 2-year mark I did it. I signed a lease. A tiny failed sandwich shop in a good neighborhood. The rent was cheap. The landlord loved my story. The red perch. Brick and mortar. I painted the walls myself. I scrubbed the floors on my hands and knees. I trained my new staff. I was 26 years old. I was a business owner. I was also exhausted. I had silent tears in the new walk-in freezer where no one could see me. I burned my hands so many times I stopped counting. I didn't date. I didn't see friends. I just worked. And here's the thing. I'd heard rumors. Jessica from my old office had come in for lunch. She told me. Mark and Chloe? They got fired. Turns out Mark pulled the same stunt. He tried to promote Chloe to a position she was wildly underqualified for. Over a woman who had been with the company for 10 years. This time the woman had proof. She had emails. She had texts from Mark complaining about the old guard. She had documented everything. The company, terrified of a massive lawsuit, fired them both. Immediately. With cause. No severance. When I heard that, I felt nothing. A cold, distant, I was too busy. I was too focused on my own life. Theirs didn't matter anymore. I expanded. I found a model. I franchised. I was careful. I only partnered with owner-operators. People with stories. People with grit. By year 3 I was 27. I had 18 locations. 5 states. I had a new apartment. A nice one. I had a savings account with a lot of commas. I had paid off my student loans. I wasn't the 24-year-old girl with $37 in her account. I was someone else. Someone new. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Around 2:30 p.m. The lunch rush was over. I was at my flagship store. The first one. I was training a new manager, a great guy named David. I was showing him how to deep clean the espresso machine. The right way. I was in jeans. A black perch t-shirt. My hair was in a messy bun. I had an apron on. I was covered in coffee grounds. And the bell on the door jingled. I didn't look up. "Welcome to the perch," I said, my voice muffled as I scrubbed a nozzle. "Be with you in a second." A man's voice said. A voice that was familiar. A voice that sent a jolt of ice water through my veins. A voice I hadn't heard in 3 years, but one that I still heard in my nightmares. I stood up. Fully. And there he was. Mark Lawson. My brain short-circuited. It couldn't process the data. This was Mark. But it wasn't. The Mark I knew wore crisp, expensive shirts. He smelled like expensive, sharp cologne. He stood straight, radiating an aura of casual, unearned power. This man was a ghost. He was thin and his cheap suit hung on him like a costume. It was shiny at the elbows. He smelled, faintly, of sweat and fear. The man who had fired me, the man who held my life in his hands, was gone. This was just a husk. Next to him was a woman. Her hair was stringy. Her clothes were unkempt. It was Chloe. The triumphant, laughing woman from the office, the woman from the Cabo pictures. She was gone too. This woman looked tired. She looked cheap. The rhinestone heart keychain I'd seen on her designer bag was now attached to a cracked, fake leather purse. They were pathetic. They stared at me. I stared at them. David, the new manager, looked between us. "Boss? You okay?" Mark's face went white. I mean, completely, totally white. Like he'd seen a ghost. He grabbed Chloe's arm. We should go." Chloe hadn't recognized me. She just looked confused. What? It's just a chicken place, Mark. I'm hungry." Then she looked at me. Really looked at me. She looked at my face. She looked at the logo on my shirt. She looked around the restaurant. At the framed newspaper article on the wall. The admin who fought back won. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. You're her." The silence in that restaurant was so total I could hear the hum of the drink cooler. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Mark was frozen. He couldn't move. He just stared at me. "Sarah?" he croaked. I put the cleaning rag down. I wiped my hands on my apron. My hands were perfectly steady. "Mark." "Chloe," I said. My voice was calm. It didn't even shake. "It's been a long time." I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just looked at them. We were just. Mark stammered. He couldn't finish a sentence. "You were just." I prompted, still calm. "We were just looking for work," Chloe blurted out. Her voice was high-pitched, desperate. "We saw the now hiring sign. We'll do anything. Kitchen cleaning, anything." The irony. The unbelievable, crushing, spectacular irony. They were applying for a job. To me. I looked at Mark. The senior manager. The man who held my life in his hands. The man who read from a script. He couldn't meet my eyes. He was staring at the floor. Humiliated. I could have destroyed them. I could have screamed. I could have told them to get out. I could have called security just like he did to me. I could have listed every single thing they did. I could have, and a part of me, the old 24-year-old me, wanted to. I wanted to see them beg. But I wasn't that person anymore. "You'll do anything?" I asked. My voice was quiet. Mark nodded, still looking at the floor. Chloe was practically vibrating with desperation. Yes. Please. We haven't worked in months. We got blacklisted. We're broke. Broke. That word. Hey, I said. David, my manager, shot me a look. Boss, what are you doing? I ignored him. Follow me, I said. I didn't wait to see if they were following. I just turned and walked toward the back through the staff-only doors. I heard their footsteps behind me. I took them to the utility closet. It was big, clean, organized. I pointed to the mop bucket. The kitchen floor needs to be mopped. All of it. Under the prep tables. I turned to Chloe. The customer bathrooms need to be deep cleaned. Toilets. Figs. Floors. Mirrors. I handed Mark the mop. I handed Chloe the cleaning caddy. The yellow rubber gloves. They just stared at the items. Like they'd never seen them before. You said, anything, I said. Chloe put on the gloves. Her hands were shaking. Mark just took the mop. Get started, I said. And I walked out. I didn't watch them. That would have been gloating. That would have been his level. I went back to the front. I made myself a coffee. But my hands were perfectly steady as I poured it. I sat in that window booth, the sun warm on my face, and I sipped. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel joy. Felt quiet. I felt a deep, profound, absolute calm. In the background I could hear it. The shush 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 of a mop. A wet, rhythmic scraping sound. The sound of work. The sound of humility. It was the sound of a senior manager, the man who thought I was a criminal, scrubbing my floor. It was the sound of the woman who took my job, the woman who laughed at my desk, cleaning my toilets. I didn't need to watch. Hearing it was enough. It was the sound of the world, finally, after 3 long years, tipping back into balance. I sat there. I answered emails on my phone. I approved a new marketing budget for the Austin location. I finalized the menu for our new spring specials. And in the background, the shush 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 went on. They worked for an hour. An hour and 15 minutes. They came out. They were a mess. Mark was sweating. His cheap shirt was stuck to his back. His hair was plastered to his forehead. Chloe had a streak of something gray on her cheek. Her eyes were red. We're done, Mark said. His voice was a rasp. I nodded. I got up. I walked to the back. I inspected the floor. It was clean. I checked the men's room. I checked the women's room. They were spotless. I walked back out. They were standing in the hallway by the stockroom. Waiting. Like children outside the principal's office. You missed a spot, I said. Mark's head snapped up. Panicked. I was kidding. I didn't smile. It's clean, I said. You did a good job. They both just sagged with relief. It was bizarre. Sarah, Mark started. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. For what I did. Was wrong. I was an idiot. I lost everything. I deserved to. Chloe was just crying. Silently. Just tears streaming down her face. And I looked at them. The anger. It was just gone. It had been gone for years. I didn't even realize it. You know, Mark, I said, what you did, it was cruel. It was petty. And it was the single best thing that ever happened to me. They both looked up, stunned, like I had just slapped them. Forgiveness was the one thing they weren't prepared for. You do. Chloe whispered. Yes, I said. Not for you. For me. I let that go a long time ago. I was just too busy to notice. Mark. He actually looked hopeful. A pathetic little flicker of it. So, the job, he asked. I almost laughed. Almost did. The audacity. The sheer, uncut audacity. After all this, he still thought he was qualified. No, Mark, I said. My voice was gentle. But it was also final. You can't work here. His face fell. But, we did the work. You did, I said. But you can't work here. You'd be a terrible employee. You've proven that. You're disloyal. You're weak. And you have no integrity. I turned to Chloe. And you're not qualified. That was the one. The only cut. It was sharp. It was clean. And it was the truth. Her face crumpled. But, I said. I reached into my apron pocket. I pulled out my wallet. I took out $40. 2 $20 bills. I pay for work done, I said. 1 hour. 15 minutes. At minimum wage. Actually, I'll pay you double. I held the money out to Mark. He just stared at it. Take it, I said. He slowly reached out and took the 2 bills. His hand was shaking. Now, I said. I pointed to the front door. Get out of my restaurant. They went. They didn't run. They just walked. 2 broken, defeated people. The bell on the door jingled. And they were gone. I stood there for a long time. David, my manager, came up. He didn't say anything. He just handed me a fresh cup of coffee. Thanks, David, I said. They really cleaned that floor, he said. Actually laughed. Real laugh. Yeah, I said. Yeah, they did. I looked around my restaurant. My restaurant. The smell of Nona's chicken. The sound of my staff prepping for the dinner rush. The hum of the coolers. The warm light. I thought about the $37.14. I thought about the girl on the bus holding her shattered phone. I thought about the burn on my arm, which was now just a pale, silvery scar. I thought about my brother, Alex. I made a mental note to call him. I hadn't talked to him in a week. I had won. It's a funny thing winning. It wasn't the moment they mopped my floors. That wasn't the victory. The victory had been happening all along. It was the 4 a.m. prep. It was the food blogger. It was paying back my brother. It was signing the first lease. It was hiring my first employee. The victory was the work. Mark and Chloe? They weren't the final boss. They were just the tutorial. They were the reason I'd been forced to play the game. And I had gotten really good at the game. I took a sip of my coffee. It was strong. It was good. I put my apron back on. All right, David, I said, tying the strings. Let's see that espresso machine. You're still not getting the nozzle right. He groaned, but he was smiling. I had already won. In every possible way. The rest was just cleaning up.